Snagging an elite tight end scorer at good value is a cheat code to winning your fantasy championships. We reveal our favorite tight ends to target throughout 2025 fantasy football drafts on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today, we are going to discuss our favorite tight ends to target throughout the draft. So we're going to go through one guy we're targeting early in the draft, if that's a strategy we want to go with. Or maybe we want to wait to the middle round, so we'll give you a target there. Or maybe you want to just punt the position and wait for the double-digit rounds, and we'll give you our favorite target in that area of the draft as well. Vinny, let's start with the early round tight end. And you chose someone that I was highly, thinking about picking for this, but I really like your pick here. So who's your favorite early round tight end to target?
Yeah, you'll sense a theme here a little bit with the tight ends, and you'll figure that out in our second segment where we're going with this. But when we look at it, it's Sam LaPorta. For me, he's a guy that, again, has been heavily involved in what they do offensively. I think he will see a few more targets here with Jared Goff. I don't think he's going to have the same type of downfield passing success this season without Ben Johnson. And we know going back to Los Angeles and the Rams, he likes throwing to the tight end, throwing to the middle of the field. Sam LaPorta has been great. I think the one difference that we've seen is the touchdowns. And I think the touchdowns are up and down typically for tight ends, but we know that Sam LaPorta gets used in the red zone. We've seen a gaggle of other tight ends score here for the Lions. They tend to pilfer his scores that he could have had more so than some other tight ends, but I think you'll see him kind of rebound with the scoring and be more consistent there, see the targets that he needs to get up there. And look, you look at the alternatives, right? You're paying a lot for Brock Bowers. He's the top guy on the board. You're looking at Trey McBride. You're going pretty high with those guys. So what we're trying to do is provide some alternatives where you don't have to have that high of a cost at tight end. We fall down to tight end 4, and you'll be just fine if you don't take one of those top two, which right now are looking like Bowers and McBride, because they have the youthful buzz, and that's not a surprise there. But LaPorta, again, he's steady. He's going to get involved. Again, I think they'll actually lean on him a little bit more. I just don't see Jared Goff having the same type of season. Again, Johnson was such a good influence on him, where now they have a little bit of Broncos influence. So I think that could also help what they want to do with tight end here. So I do think, again, LaPorta is pretty essential to this offense. He's right there with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. This is the trio that we're looking at. There's not a lot of vacated targets and changes in Detroit, but there doesn't have to be. We just want the same type of thing here with LaPorta getting targeted. We just want a few more scores from him, and we'll be in business here to get closer to his value. But again, tight end 4, where we're looking at tight end 3, I'd much rather go here for a young tight end than really overdraft, I think, Bowers and McBride, which I think is going to happen in a lot of leagues where people are going to forget. Remember LaPorta just a couple of years ago? He was the hot rookie. He's the hot young guy. So that actually makes him a very good value when he's not getting the same type of buzz and he's a youthful upside player.
Yeah, and it's crazy we're asking for more touchdowns from Sam LaPorta because he has 17 over the last, his first 2 NFL seasons. That's tied for the most by any tight end over these last 2 years with Mark Andrews. So he's still scoring, but yeah, he could still get way more, right? It feels like he's missing out on opportunities just because they spread the ball around. And you're like, there's so much more, growth for him, opportunities for growth. So that's what's really exciting about Sam LaPorta. And I just think his first half of last year is being weighed way too heavily in fantasy managers' minds. They think about drafting him super early last year. How incredibly bad. I mean, you barely could use him for the first 9 weeks of the season. He was only getting 3 targets per game, 6 fantasy points per game from weeks 1 through 9. He came back to completely life and did exactly what he did in his rookie season in the second half of the season, averaging over 7 targets per game, 11.5 fantasy points per game. So I'm not worried about him moving forward. He gets a ton of red zone targets, like you said. I really like his draft cost, and I think people are overlooking him just because of how slow he started last year. Now, my guy, I'm going with another 49ers guy. I'm sorry, but clearly that they just have really great value this year. I think the 49ers overall last year disappointed people, and now they're just going later than they should be. Now, George Kittle, who I'm choosing, he's not going late. He's going as the tight end 3. You still have to take him, probably in the 3rd round at latest. But I think he's the tight end 1 in my ranks this year pretty easily. I mean, he was the tight end 1 on average last year by a lot. Like, he scored 1 more point per game than Brock Bowers last season. But Brock Bowers finished as the tight end 1 in total points because he played all 17 games and Kittle missed 2 games. George Kittle is just like what he does, because you look at these top 3 tight ends in scoring last year is Kittle, Bowers, and McBride, right? Kittle had 94 targets. Well, Brock Bowers had 153 and Trey McBride had 147. So both of them had over 50 more targets than Kittle, and still Kittle averaged them points. When you're looking through his points and throughout all the games last year, there is only 3 games in the fantasy season that he scored fewer than 12 fantasy points, which is unheard of as a tight end. One was in week 1. All right, he started slow. The other 2 games were like when I was talking about Brock Purdy, were the terrible weather games, the snowstorm and the downpour. Those were the only 3 games you can look at that he scored fewer than 12 points in half PPR league. Like, he was just so consistent. And then he also has that big game ability when you're looking at most games by a tight end to score at least 15 points in half PPR over the last 2 seasons. George Kittle has 13 such games, most among tight ends. Next closest is Trey McBride at 10. The next closest at 3rd place is Travis Kelce at 8. So, like, he's just dominating these other tight ends, and his efficiency, he doesn't need all the targets, but I do think this year he's going to get a lot more targets. Like, we have seen a year where he's had 130 targets before we call Shanahan when he was needed. And I think that's going to be this type of year where he's definitely needed to be the focal point of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, George Kittle, since he's entered the league, has been pretty much the best kind of version of what we saw with Robert Gronkowski stretching the field at this position. He's a very good downfield tight end. That's why he has some bulky, gaudy averages in yards per catch, and this gives him the ability to do more with fewer targets. And what we've seen as well is his chemistry has really revved up with the quarterback since Brock Purdy took over. I mean, Purdy and Kittle have a special connection that, look, we saw a little bit of it with previous quarterbacks, but not at this level where Purdy is such a good downfield passer, and that fits so well with George Kittle's game. And then they look to Kittle a lot more in the red zone. So Kittle is gone from a guy that would explode in a few games and give you the numbers that way to someone that's rather consistent because of his usage and his connection with the quarterback. And as Michelle pointed out, the targets could easily shoot up here with Brandon Ayuk status a little bit in question with the knee injury. We'll see what they do with the other receivers. I mean, Ricky Pearsall we like as well at wide receiver, Juwan Jennings, but however you look at it, Kittle's going to be a key target right along with Christian McCaffrey that makes this engine go of the offense. So I think he's fine. I think he's status quo. I think you're going to get what you get from him. You're not going to necessarily break the bank with value here, right? There's not much value to be had with either of these guys, really, when you look at 3 or 4 in the tight end. But just give you a little bit of extra. Get that one extra player that you can get instead of a Bowers or McBride if they're ending up going with Kittle. You want some people to be down on Kittle because the age, or maybe the 49ers have a perception of being a fading team. That's okay. You can take advantage of that. Same thing with the Lions, because I think a lot of this stuff with LaPorta is just based on the scoring discrepancy between his first year and his second year. So, again, take advantage of these spots. I think if you go early, I'd rather go to either one of these guys. And, again, there's something in common, and that'll be also playing into our other tight end to target as we get a little bit deeper into the mid-range tight end ones in our next segment, and also give you a couple deeper sleepers to take away and highlight or cheat sheets here on the show.
Yeah, I think that's a clear point maybe to take away from this, is that if you're going to go with the strategy of taking a tight end early, we would rather wait just a little bit. I mean, you're not waiting long for George Kittle or for Sam LaPorta instead of going with Brock Bowers super, super early in the draft, or even Trey McBride a little bit earlier. We would just prefer those 2 guys. So, yeah, like you said, we're going to get deeper here. Let's go in. Let's hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll talk about our mid-tier tight end that we're targeting in drafts this season. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending out on food. Now I budget much smarter, go to the grocery store and save a lot more. Plus, managing money with my partner has never been smoother. We're able to track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, Vinny, let's say you do not get one of those top 4 guys in the draft. You're not going to chase after Brock Bowers or Trey McBride or George Kittle or even Sam LaPorta. You're going to wait a little bit and wait till those middle rounds of the draft. Who is the guy you're targeting at the tight end position?
Yeah, I think you have to continue this Hawkeye theme, and that's what our theme is here. We have some Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, this is a team that I particularly can't say I love in college football because I'm a Northwestern fan. But when it comes to drafting tight ends, I'm all about it. This is my favorite team to look at. They've all produced, and TJ Hockenson falls right into that. Because you look at the Vikings, and it was clear they were bringing him along slowly last year, right? When you come off a major knee injury, you're not going to just make the guy take too much on and break down, right? He's a little bit older. He's getting up there. So they managed him a little bit. The snaps were slowly improving for him. And it ended up pretty good when he was playing in the second half of the season, when he started to kind of settle into the offense again with Kevin O'Connell. Of course, his quarterback there was Sam Darnold. Now Darnold is gone. You have J.J. McCarthy taking. Now this actually could be great here for Hockenson because, again, Darnold was kind of empowered to throw downfield better than he ever had before. We know Kirk Cousins has a big arm, and he's pretty confident that he can put in tight windows deep. But J.J. McCarthy might be a little bit more conservative as he tries to kind of get his bearing on this offense. He's just younger. He has played at all. Really, he's a rookie, even though he's in year 2. I mean, knee injury said he wasn't even going to play. So, again, if you look at that, rookies tend to turn tight ends into security blankets. I'm not saying that's going to be so detrimental to Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison. I think they'll get theirs too. But if I say one person's going to hurt maybe more is Addison, because Jefferson's Jefferson, right? But if you're going to pick and get the targets, I think Hockenson is going to be schemed up open here well by O'Connell, knowing how vital he's going to be to McCarthy's development this year. So if you look at it, I mean, numbers are slowly going up. The usage, the targets, all that were going up for what Hockenson's role was in this offense. And again, I think, he's going to be pretty vital here. He's tight end now 5 on the board. This is in half-point PPR, so really I'm going 3, 4, 5 when we look at it. The 3 Hawkeyes guys are on the board, but that's kind of like the sweet spot is what I would say now of the tight ends you want to target. Now, if you wait a little later, you're going to be stretching a little bit, looking for some help, maybe. But this is kind of the zone you want to target here and try to get into it. I mean, you can throw in a couple more names. I mean, those grand old men, Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, are in this group as well. So, again, you start to have some questions when you drop out of the top 7 or so at tight end, when you look at McBride and Bowers and then Kittle, LaPorta, Hockenson. Then it starts to get interesting, and there's a few question marks with those guys. So, to me, he represents the last kind of mid-early roster starting lineup building kind of draft pick here. So I do like Hockenson quite a bit, especially with McCarthy and having the younger quarterback. And again, he's going to be their 3rd target easily. I mean, he actually could surpass Addison in seeing more targets there behind Jefferson as well. So I just love Hockenson. And again, he is due for a big season. I think not having that knee injury concern or rehab this offseason is going to be a lot better. He's going to be healthier right out of the gate.
It's interesting because you say TJ Hockenson's the tight end 5 off the board, right? And Sam LaPorta was tight end 4, and we're counting them as kind of different tiers here. But I think that's very fair because Sam LaPorta is going 56 overall in drafts, while TJ Hockenson's going in the mid 70s, so a good 20 picks later. But there is a big drop off in talent at the other positions over those 20 picks, right? Where Sam LaPorta is going, you still have to choose him over some really helpful guys that you would be starting every week in your fantasy leagues. And, David Montgomery or Jamison Williams or Marion Hampton or Devonta Smith, like those are the guys you have to take him over, which I'm fine doing that. Cause like I said, I like LaPorta, but with Hockenson, if you feel good about him coming back, I mean, the guys going around him are Brian Robinson Jr. and Jordan Addison, same team, Jerry Jeudy, Isaiah Pacheco. It's just a little bit easier. Like those aren't guys that you're certain will be in your lineup every week. So you do get more value off of Hockenson here if you do think he's going to, pop back from not scoring any touchdowns last year. That was really his biggest issue, coming back from that ACL tear, just a little bit slow, but he already had the third most. You say he's definitely going to be the third most targeted guy in the Vikings. I completely agree with you. And I won't be surprised if he's the second highest target. Yeah. He already had the third most targets on this team last year, and he only played 10 games. He didn't come back until week 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm fully with you there. He just turned 28 years old. There's still plenty of time. And he's 1 year removed from being the tight end 3 on average. And then in 2022, he was the tight end 4. So I fully am with you here that TJ Hockenson should have a really nice year. It's a little hard to figure out, right? Because JJ McCarthy, we have to see who he prefers to target. But I do like this pick by you. Now, my guy is a little bit further down, but not by much. It's David Njoku. He's going as a tight end 8 on average right now in consensus rankings. He was the tight end 5 on average last season. He only played 11 games. And that's really the big issue with David Njoku, right? He finally had his breakout a couple years ago, but he gets injured a lot. And he's had a lot of bad quarterbacks. And I mean, he's still going to have a bad quarterback this year, likely. But if Joe Flacco wins, he's going to be great with Joe Flacco. We've already seen it, right? We've already seen him play with Joe Flacco. And we know Joe Flacco is going to air it out, and David Njoku is going to get his. But even last year with the bad quarterback play, like I said, he was averaging 10.9 points per game. And it was better than that in the second half of the year because he got injured in week 1. He missed weeks 2 through 4. Came back very slowly in weeks 5 and 6. But from week 7 through 16, he was averaging 12.8 points per game. That's more than what Brock Bowers averaged last season. And then, of course, he got hurt again in week 16 and missed 17 and 18. But he misses too many games. I'll give you that. So that's a risk. But if he can stay healthy and Joe Flacco's out there, I just think he's going to have a lot of great value on a week-to-week basis. And he also offers great upside. Just looking at tight end games with more than 13 or more fantasy points scored in half PPR over the last 2 years. David Njoku's at 10. Only George Kittle, Trey McBride, and Sam LaPorta have had more such games than him. And David Njoku's missed a lot of time. So David Njoku's out there in the field. You're going to want to play him. And I think he's a good value where he's going right now in drafts.
Yeah, the Browns quarterback situation, I mean, it's going to be resolved here soon, but he's going to have to be a key target for whoever the winner is, regardless. Because, again, you have Jerry Jeudy, who's established himself pretty well as a key target of this offense out of necessity, but they're still trying to figure out the other guys at this position. They might have some running hiccups as well as they transition the backfield. So, again, David Njoku, he came in as a first-round pick. We were like wondering when was he going to manifest that talent. He was a decent blocker for them and durable guy, and then they gave him an extension. But then we started to see why he was a first-round talent because he can receive and stretch the field a little bit, get open in key spots here for the Browns. You don't have like a Harrison Bryant type anymore, like trying to cut into his work here. So I do like Njoku. I think he's a guy that has never quite excited me. I don't know why, but I think I'm still bitter about taking him early in his career and just not seeing the results. And I think I'm holding on to it. But in terms of fantasy, like say him or now Evan Ingram, I think Ingram splitting from the Jaguars to the Broncos, I think there's a little bit more variable there, right? What his role is going to be. But we know what David Njoku's role is going to be. In this mishmash of quarterbacks, he's going to be the guy that's relied upon quite a bit. Now, if Deshaun Watson was in there, like I don't know if I would feel as great because Watson is not super ideal I'm going to take what's in front of me, check down guy. I'm going to look for the downfield passing. But the fact that it's some limited quarterbacks battling, I mean, Shedeur Sanders, if he somehow gets in this mix, but I think they're going to have to incorporate him quite a bit here in what they're doing. I mean, just by necessity. And there's just fewer variables around Njoku than in Ingram or somebody else. And same thing, he's in a similar situation to Hockenson, where a lot of the familiarity is there. And look, the only thing that changes quarterback, that's not an insignificant deal, but again, at least one of them he has some history with. So I'm interested to see what Njoku can do, because again, they're going to need him as well in this offense quite a bit. So I do like Njoku, by the way, a lot more than Ingram this season.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm definitely with you on that side. All right, we have one more tight end to both discuss, and that's if you're waiting, you just keep waiting on your tight end. You don't want to take one in the first 10 rounds or so. You want to wait to the double-digit rounds. We have a guy each for you to target in your drafts coming up next month. We'll get to that to close out today's show right after a quick break. Before we get to our final two tight ends we're targeting in drafts, I want to just remind everyone that the Locked On NFL Top 100 has been released on Locked On Sports today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL hosts of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports today or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Vinny, give me the guy that you're targeting at tight end if you waited until the double-digit rounds to take your starting tight end.
Yeah, well, this is waiting beyond the double-digit rounds. I think you're going to be just sitting here in the draft and like, oh, I missed on the tight end run number 1. I missed on the second. I missed on the third, maybe even the 4th tight end run in your drafts. And you're like, oh, where should I go here? I have a name that has been pretty good with a younger quarterback. It was a different younger quarterback. It's Hunter Henry of the Patriots. Now, when you look at what they've added, they added Stephon Diggs and the rookie Kyle Williams. But Diggs is coming off an ACL injury. Kyle Williams is a rookie. Drake May, if you look at the games where Drake May and Hunter Henry played together, it was very similar to the Mac Jones experience with Hunter Henry. Just didn't have the same type of scoring rate, where Henry was very valuable there when Mac Jones was coming into the league and had to have a security blanket. Well, May and Henry developed a pretty good chemistry level where he was getting more than 11 points per game in fantasy when they were playing together. And there wasn't a lot of time for that. But when these guys were on the field together, they produced quite a bit. And really, there's not a lot of targets here. I know they have some vacated targets, but there's not a lot of target change, I will say, where you have Diggs and Williams, but they're really going to cut in more to what the wide receivers are doing, right? They got to figure out wide receiver. It's such a mess that they just needed somebody there. But I think Henry is going to be steady and see a few more targets on top of that, because I think you look at Josh McDaniels coming back. I think that also helps, just the change of direction here. And again, when we had that combination before, it really worked in the Jones era. And I think he was underutilized quite a bit in the previous offense, just until May was in there. So I think we have some upside for Drake May. He's got to get the points somehow. If we have a few concerns about Diggs and the receiving core, and it could be a little spread around situation, I think the guy you would trust most is Henry. He's been around for a while. He's a good red zone target as well and can get open all over the field. So I do like Hunter Henry having another one of those kind of spike seasons based on the youth of his quarterback. And again, if you look, just the chemistry between him and May is pretty evident, and the numbers were there too to back it up. So I'm saying Hunter Henry, you can do a lot worse at dart throw. There's not, again, a lot of people that you could trust in the Patriots offense that you expect to be improved. Tight end 17 is an absolute freebie here for a potential starter that could easily be in the top 12.
Yeah, he could finish top 12. I don't know if he's going to be exciting or have that upside, but I get what you're saying. Now, I do think my guy at tight end 13, rookie Tyler Warren, the Colts' first-round pick this year, he does have super high upside, right? So that's why if I'm going to wait, I'm going to go for him now. It could be a total disaster of a pick where he doesn't, he's a rookie tight end and doesn't do a lot of production. But I just don't really see that happening because more now than ever, rookie tight ends are being utilized right away. I mean, our last two tight end ones overall in fantasy in the last two seasons have been a rookie. We had Brock Bowers as a tight end 1 overall last year, and then Sam LaPorta as a tight end 1 overall in 2023, his rookie season. And then in 2021, we had Kyle Pitts as the wide receiver, or the tight end 7 overall, but he had over 1,000 receiving yards, right? And I think that's kind of Tyler Warren's like worst case scenario, is that we know, I really am very confident that he's going to get a lot of targets and a lot of receptions in this offense. No matter if it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, it might not be pretty, right? I do think he's going to put up yardage. The one big concern is how many touchdowns will there be to go around in this offense? Like, will either of these quarterbacks that are out there be putting up a bunch of touchdowns? And that might not happen. And so that's why I'm like, okay, I don't know if he's going to have the upside of tight end 1 like LaPorta and Brock Bowers did. But I mean, Bowers only scored 5 touchdowns last year too, right? And he was in a bad offense. So I'm really high in Tyler Warren this year. He has a prototypical frame for an NFL tight end. I think he's very NFL ready. He's so good after the catch. 56% of his receiving yards last year came post catch. That's what I love about tight ends. That's why George Kittle's so stinking good too, because he's so good after the catch. The production he put up at Penn State last year was just unheard of for a college tight end, really, any tight end. 1,233 yards, 8 touchdowns last year at Penn State. I really, really like him. I don't think there's any player on this team that like dominates being a super heavy target guy in Michael Pittman or Josh Allen or Alec Pierce. So there's targets to go around. And I think Tyler Warren has that top 5 tight end upside.
Yeah, this is yet another thing. We talked about Jonathan Taylor as someone to target in your drafts out of this backfield. This is another thing where we might, again, no offense to Anthony Richardson, we might be rooting for Daniel Jones to win this job, because Anthony Richardson, again, we don't like quarterbacks who take off and run and throw deep, because that forgets the in-between guys and the checkdowns and all that. So if Daniel Jones is there, he's going to be careful with the ball. We've seen it all the way back to like a Daniel Bellinger type, right? Where Daniel Jones, if he gets a job, he's going to try to keep it, and he knows the best way to keep it is not turning the ball over. So he's not going to just force it downfield. And like, I think they've tried to put some things together with Anthony Richardson that haven't worked, like trying to get Josh Downs to kind of stretch the field with his quickness in the slot, or Alec Pierce to hit those home run balls. But I think Jones is going to be the better guy that you look for the values of not only these two, but Pittman and just in general, right? The intermediate to short targets are going to benefit more from Jones. So I really like your pick here. I mean, I think he's a better choice than Colston Loveland. Just too many mouths to feed with DJ Moore and Colston Loveland, and now Cole Kmet and just
Roma Dunze,
there's just DeAndre Swift out of the backfield. You can keep adding them up. There's just too many targets there with Colston Loveland, where I think Pierce and Downs could go by the wayside. It could be a lot of Pittman and him on short and intermediate routes, and a little bit of Jonathan Taylor on checkdowns. So that's what we want from Jones. We don't want the erratic, inconsistent, inaccurate Anthony Richardson in there, because you want the short passes, the easy ones there. So I love your pick. And Tyler Warren, if I'm going to pick one of those 2 tight ends, easy choice of the rookies to break out and hit that. I don't think he's going to hit Bowers or McBride level, but certainly I think he'll well outproduce his tight end 13 ranking.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That is it for today's episode. Have now gone through all the positions and talked about our favorite targets to go for throughout the fantasy drafts at different rounds. We're going to kind of do the opposite experiment next week with each of these positions, guys, throughout the draft that we are avoiding due to their cost. So don't miss those episodes. I hope you all have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. Bye, y'all.